The first phase of Genshin Impact 3.6 features Nahida as well as Nilou, two of the most powerful free-to-play 5-star characters in the game. Phase 2 is shaping up to have Baizhu as well as Ganyu, two other characters that are also fantastic for players of the game. Welcome back to the channel, happy Friday. We're going over some things that you need to know about each of these characters so you can make the decisions that are correct for you in your account in Genshin Impact. So the first character I want to talk about with you guys is going to be Nahida. Now, you might have heard this about this character already, that Nahida really isn't necessary to have access to on your account to play with Dendro reactions. You don't need her for a Bloom team, you don't need her for a Hyper Bloom team or Burgeoning, and that's correct because you have so many options as a free-to-play player. You had the option to pick up Yao Yao, you can get Kali for free. The Traveler can be changed into Dendro. All of these things can be utilized as very powerful Dendro characters because the element is just so strong, and because it's based around elemental mastery for the most part, you can do so many things without Nahida. But even though that is true to say, Nahida is so powerful and so easy to build and use that I would put her in a top 5 characters that a free-to-play player should probably try to gain access to. So let me explain this right now. Yes, you can know how the elemental gauge theory works and elemental reactions work and how much Dendro you should apply to how much Hydro and Electro for all these different teams, but Nahida is so plug and play easy to use because of her elemental skill, all schemes. So now you're going to be able to take photographs of people, we like calling it pictures here, and it's going to apply the Seed of Skanda, which is going to be a 25-second duration debuff. And then while these enemies have this debuff on them, you're going to be able to do elemental reactions of any kind, and it's going to activate this debuff to trigger again, applying more Dendro and dealing damage. So this does a couple of things for you there. It basically allows you to turn your brain off in these Dendro teams and have Nahida as your sole applier in lots of situations. You don't want to learn how the elemental reaction system works, how much Dendro you need to apply, how much Hydro you need to apply. This is going to be taking care of that circumstance for you 90% of the time all by itself. You just put it on enemies and you're going to be reapplying Dendro over and over and over, and it's going to be a very fantastic thing for you there. The other good thing about all schemes to know as well is not only is it doing all this Dendro application for you, but it is so easy to maximize the damage on it because Trikarma Purification scales both off of attack as well as elemental mastery, which goes into the second point about Nahida being very easy to build. Typically, when you're looking at a character that wants to do damage, have access to elemental reactions, have elemental mastery in their kit, have crit chance, have crit damage, you really kind of need to get in there and min-max everything to take the most advantage of that character. Not so for Nahida because, well, if you wanted to do elemental reactions in your team, you're going to be able to build her for elemental mastery, and that's going to be taken care of. If you need her as a main damage dealer, but you don't want to farm up a new set of gear for you, it's okay. You have elemental mastery in your build already, and this is scaling off of your elemental mastery already. So if you just build Nahida for elemental mastery, some crit chance, some crit damage, you're going to be able to do fantastic things with this character without fully even needing to really realize how all of the back-end systems of Genshin Impact actually work. So Nahida's going to be an amazing character to just get in there, be powerful, easy to play, and easy to build all at the same time. Now, she also has two of the best constellations in the game as well. So if you want to take this character and make her absolutely busted, the Constellation 1 here is going to enhance the amount of Pyro, Electro, and Hydro characters that are tabulated for her elemental burst, increasing each of them by 1. And this is going to give you either increased damage for her elemental skill when it triggers, increased duration for her elemental burst, or decrease the trigger interval time on her elemental skill doing extra damage. You're going to get one for each of these, which makes her Constellation 1 fantastic for you. And then the Constellation 2 is kind of game breaking in a sense that it allows you to do something that you usually can't do, as the Constellation 2 is going to allow Burning, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, and Burgeon to actually critically hit, but they're going to have a fixed chance of 20% crit chance and 100% crit damage, which is going to be pretty great. 1 out of 5 times, each of these reactions are going to be doing double damage. So if any of that stuff sounds good to you and you were debating whether or not you wanted to pull for Nahida or get her constellations, hopefully you have a little bit more information about that now. Now, Nilou's the other character that's currently available and is about to go away, and I want to say a few things about her because she has one really good thing and one really bad thing about her that I just got to get off of my chest. Now, the one bad thing you could say is that she is more restrictive than a lot of other characters in Genshin Impact. And that is because of one of her ascensions, which is going to be the Court of Dancing Petals. To fully utilize Nilou, you need to have only Dendro and Hydro characters in your party, which this is the restrictive part. If you're a newer player or a free-to-play player, basically the only amount of max usefulness you can get from Nilou is restricted to these teams. You can't play her with Pyro characters and get this benefit. You can't play her with Electro, Geo, Animo. They can't even be in the team because she needs to have this passive to make her a little bit more useful than she usually is. This is going to allow you to generate bountiful cores, which are bigger Dendro cores that do bigger bloom damages. And this is something that you definitely want to have access to get the full benefit of this character in your teams. However, there's one really good thing about this though, is that, well, Dendro and Hydro characters, if you're a brand new player or you know someone who's new and they want something strictly for the ability as a second team to clear the abyss, you're basically given this team for free in Genshin Impact as long as you have Nilou. And that's because if you have access to Nilou, you can make a very solid free-to-play friendly team. And when I say free-to-play, I mean all free characters outside of Nilou. So if you have her, you can use Kali as a free character in your Dendro team, and then you can pick up Barbara for free as well, which is going to be another Dendro and another Hydro character. And then Barbara can be your healer for the squad on top of that. And then afterwards, once you gain access to the Traveler, you go over to Sumeru, you touch a statue, you can get the Dendro Traveler, and then you'll have a full bloom team, only Hydro and Dendro characters to fully utilize your Nilou, which is going to be a fantastic thing. And there's definitely something to be said about a team that you can put, well, basically together for free as long as you have the 5 stars, especially if you're a brand new player. So as long as you like the Bloom playstyle and you don't mind playing Bloom with Nilou as one of your main parties, she doesn't really have any main drawbacks outside of the fact that she's a little more restrictive than a lot of the other characters. Now, the last one is going to be a little bit biased for me because this is going to come down to personal playstyle preference. And I said last one, but it's second to last one. You got debated. So this is Ganyu, and Ganyu is a very powerful character. Not as free-to-play friendly as some of the other characters we just talked about, but only because, well, she needs more than just elemental mastery to make her work in the best way possible. She's just your typical damage-dealing character. However, if you don't enjoy the playstyle of Ganyu, of just doing this double charge shot over and over for the most part at Constellation 0, you might not enjoy her. So I will say this, when the banner is released, if you're new or haven't played with her before, go and try her out in the test area first, and then decide if that is your playstyle that you like. However, there are a couple of things that you can do to sort of spice up that playstyle, and then I want to talk about how efficient and effective she is nowadays in 2023. So the one thing that you can do with Ganyu is there is a little tiny animation cancel that I like to use, and you can do this at Constellation 0. You don't need any constellations, and this is going to spice up her playstyle. There's 2 different ways to shoot a charge shot with any bow character in the game. You have to hold down the normal attack button until the charge shot goes off, and then we have the less used aim down sights aiming mode here. As you can see, it's 6 on my screen here. That's my keybind. You can keybind it to whatever you want, and it'll look a little bit something like this, and you'll just kind of stay in this sort of aiming mode basically the entire time. What you want to do in the trick is you want to use both of these as an animation cancel. So you want to shoot your first arrow using the traditional hold down the normal attack key input, and then after you fire this arrow, you want to quickly go into aiming mode, and this will not instantly, but very, very quickly get you back down, aim down sight, so you can start charging your shot even faster. It's about like a 20-25% DPS increase from your charge shot doing this. So if we just try to do this normally, it's going to look like this. And then if we do the good old animation cancel in the aiming mode, that's a slow version of it. And if we get it really fast, we can do that. Now you can only do one extra arrow in aiming mode, and then you have to either leave aiming mode normally or jump or dash out of it. So you want to sort of just dash out of it afterwards, but it's a very quick thing to do if you master this. And if you master this, this is a little bit more fun for me, especially. Now you only get one extra arrow before you have to dash out. So you can sort of just shoot one normal charge shot, go into aiming mode, shoot another one, dash out, and just sort of rinse and repeat. Now the effectiveness of Freeze teams has gone down a little bit, but she is still a master of doing AoE damage between her very powerful elemental burst that has 100% uptime because it's a 15-second duration and cooldown, a little bit of taunt with her elemental skill, and very powerful charged attacks. One of her old mainstays, Venti, is still pretty good, but as Mihoyo has sort of implemented more and more enemies that can't be scooped up with Venti, his sort of power level in the Ganyu Freeze team has gone down, and you kind of want to play with Kazuha if you have Kazuha for the Ganyu Freeze team. Shenhe is a fantastic support character as well. And then one of my favorite characters to use with Ganyu is Mona. As you notice, most of these characters I mentioned are all 5-star characters. Not saying that you can't have other characters to utilize with Ganyu, such as like Diona, but a lot of her extremely powerful teammates and team members are all other 5-star characters. So if you're a free-to-play player and this sounds sort of decent to you, but you're sort of scared off by the 5 stars, don't be entirely scared off, but just know that the best characters for a traditional Ganyu Freeze team are other 5 stars. Now, as far as constellations for this character, they all sort of build on themselves into a giant sort of culmination where you have all of them, including the C6, because the C1's going to give you a little bit of cryo resist down. C2 is going to give you an extra elemental skill. C4 is going to give you bonus damage. C5 is going to give you a level up increase to your elemental skill. Great. And then C6 is going to give you a free Frost Flake arrow. Frost Flake arrow, okay, after you use your elemental skill, which is paired extremely powerfully with the Constellation 2. And then the cool thing is that once you have all of this stuff, you turn into a bow assassin, especially if you've mastered that nice little cheaty cheat that we talked about before, because it'll look a little something like this. Boom, bop, boom, bop, bop, boom. It's pretty nice. Now, the last character I want to touch on real quick is going to be Baizhu. And if you've followed anyone or read anything that likes to theorycraft, he is, from what we've all been hearing, pretty underwhelming because there's just so many good Dendro options. However, a couple things I want to touch on real quick about Baizhu is that unlike Nahida, he's not the craziest applier of Dendro in the game. He does have his elemental skill, Universal Diagnosis, that's on a 10-second cooldown that's going to apply Dendro damage. That's going to be pretty nice. And then it's going to do 3 attacks this way, return to you, and then heal your entire party based off of Baizhu's max health. So you can have a little bit of Dendro application while off the field, while healing your team. And then he also has the Elemental Burst, Holistic Revivification, which is going to give you a small shield and then a heal every time the shield is destroyed, which is going to be very good at preventing a lot of the self-damage that you do to your character with Bloom or Burgeoning or any other sort of self-afflicting Dendro-based reaction damage. It also is going to give you access to the ability to activate his second ascension here, which is All Things Are of the Earth, which is going to increase the damage that you're doing with Burning, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, and Burgeon reaction damage based off of Baizhu's max health. So he's a little bit more of a Dendro supportive healer character. He is fairly easy to build as a plus because you can just slap on the prototype Amber, which is going to increase his HP, which drives up his Ascension passive for extra damage for your other reaction damage dealing characters, and then also gives you extra healing. So if you're looking for a Dendro character that's a healer and you don't have access to Yao Yao and you've been waiting 2.5 years for Baizhu, go ahead and make that decision for yourself. And as always, make sure you go and try him out in the test area when it releases. And the most important thing to remember is that outside of Abyss Floor 12 and trying to get max stars for it, Genshin Impact's not that difficult of a game. So whatever character you have the most fun with is the character you should be pulling for, whether it's Ganyu or Baizhu or Nahida or Nilou. But these are the sort of characteristics of these characters that I've noticed, and I just want you to have that information as you make your decision. So with that being said, have fun out there, guys. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.